Hi, everyone. This is Chelsea Behrens, and welcome to the Leading with Authenticity show. This show is designed for people who are looking for wisdom and tools to be their real selves and also have the career that they want. And I'm here today with Tikiri Herath. Welcome, Tikiri. She is an award-winning author of the Rebel Diva self-empowerment workbooks and the Red-Heeled Rebels international suspense thrillers. She has worked on 4 continents, managing national and international projects and multi-million-dollar programs. And when she's not working, she's in her kitchen cooking a fusion cuisine with a glass of red wine in hand. She's also an adrenaline junkie who has rock climbed, bungee jumped, rode on the back of a motorcycle through Quebec, and flown in an acrobatic airplane upside down and parachuted solo. So welcome, Tikiri, to the show.
Thank you. That sounds way more impressive than I expected.
I'm curious, what was your favorite thing out of those adventures?
Parachuting solo.
Yeah.
It was scary, but oh boy, what an experience.
Yeah.
Like it just I feel tingling when I think about it.
Awesome.
And there are people who do it for a career, which is just amazing.
Yeah, making money, jumping out.
Yeah.
So Tikiri, you have a beautiful story. Can you please share with our audience a little bit about yourself and where you've lived and then why you started writing?
Sure. Well, I have so many stories that I want to share with you, but I think I'll just at the beginning of, I lived all over the world. My parents were expatriates. So I grew up, I was born in Asia, I grew up in Africa, I've lived in Europe, I've lived in North America, and as a child growing up in all these different places, you get exposed to the world, but different cultures, different people, the languages they speak, the food, and I think that just really either messes with your mind or it molds it in some way. But I think it's that experience that has helped me do a lot of the things that I've done in my adult life and take some of the risks that I've taken. And one of the biggest, scariest experiences that I've had, that when I think back, I think that's probably the most terrifying experience I've felt was at 19. I remember leaving a home that wasn't very pleasant. It was a childhood that was very difficult and challenging, quite toxic. So I decided at 19, we had immigrated to Canada. We took the circuitous route, Asia, Africa, London, Canada, and I found myself an adult ready to go on my own and do my own thing and leave that past behind and start a new, happier life. Found myself on the streets of Vancouver with a suitcase full more of books than clothes, and with 20 bucks in my pocket, and really not knowing where I was going to go, where I was going to sleep that night. And I can tell you that was probably the most terrifying moment in my adult life, or perhaps my entire life. But when I took that risk of leaving that comfort zone, and it was for a good reason, I was moving away, but sometimes, they say you should never look back because that's not where you're going. Mm-hmm. And I think because I didn't have a choice, I just kept moving. I got on a bus and went to the closest student community, found a little, tiny little basement room, and found jobs so I could put myself through school and put myself through 2 degrees, and did as much as I could to be self-sufficient. And all I knew was, Tikiri, you got to take care of yourself, because you don't want to have, I hate being dependent. I love being the person who stands on her own feet. And my books, one of the taglines in the books that I write is stand in your own power, because we have more power than we think we have, especially women, but both, whatever gender you are. I think it's really important that we stand in our own power and take responsibility for our own lives and be accountable for the things we do. And at 19, sitting there with my suitcase in my hand, I still remember, I was wearing a little ratty dress, and I still think that was pretty crazy. But then when you have nothing, nowhere to fall, all you do is go forward, right? Yeah. And from there on, I made sure go to school, get a job, and I went on to doing some pretty big jobs that I never imagined at when I was standing on the curb waiting for the bus to come. So I think I don't know if that is a story that would help you
Yes.
talk about just the risks that you need to take in life,
Yes.
move forward, and just get that drive to be better and do more and learn as much as you can to get to where you want. Now, what's interesting was I hit my 40s and I look back and told myself, wow, well, you've come this far, and it was on that pedestal of self-preservation, right? Got to take care of yourself. You got to get to where you want to go.
Right.
And then I realized I still have half my life to live, and now I got to do what I really want to do. And so I went through another shift in my 40s, which is what I'm living right now, and we can talk about that later. So that's a little bit about my background.
That's awesome. And I mean, I'm sure that took a lot of courage for you to do that. And it's almost as if, because you were coming from not the best childhood experience, you had motivation.
That's
right?
very true. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Tikiri, this is where you were going next with your career and how it changed and how your life transformed. So for people that are watching today who are in a career that doesn't align with who they are and who they want to be, how would you recommend that they overcome the fears that hold them back from making that change?
I love that question, Chelsea. I wish everybody would ask that question of themselves. But I'm so glad that your audience is hearing that now. Here's what shifted it was like a little earthquake. There were a few things that happened in my personal life. I first of all realized I didn't like my job, but sometimes as adults, we need to be slapped upside down for us to go, wait a minute, what's my life like? So I went through, people around me were getting sick. I was hitting my 40s, and everybody had lived that fast life of work, and I could see them falling like flies, like with stroke, cancer. So that was a huge, oh my gosh, what's going on? How can we live a more healthy lifestyle was in the back of my mind. And had someone very close to me get into a car accident, motorcycle accident, and end up in a coma for a couple of days. That shook me to the core, to realize how someone who is built like an ox can all of a sudden be so vulnerable. And it just opened my eyes to our lives, right? Tomorrow we could not be here. That was a huge wake-up call. And those incidents that happened within a span of a year, people getting sick, and made me question the work I was doing. When I get up in the morning, I have a long commute, which I hated, going to a job which I didn't enjoy, doing work which I did very well, yet it sucked my soul. And I remember walking into, it was a building in our capital city where it's a beautiful glass tower building. I remember walking into this gorgeous building and putting my lanyard, I think that's what you call it, that lanyard around your neck, where you swipe it in. And all of a sudden that felt heavy, like a noose around my neck. It's just, I just remembered. And then the next day it felt heavier and heavier. And that got me to start thinking and reading and looking at, where do I want to go next? I have, if I'm not hit by something, I have another 40 years to live, or maybe 50. Our lifespans are longer than ever before. We are healthier, the medical system's better. We are all going to be living long lives. So this is we're just a midway point. It's no longer 60 is no longer retirement. I'm not even at 60. It'll be a long time before I hit 60, but we have so much more to go. And the one quote that helped me make a change was Bronnie Ware. She's an Australian. She's a palliative care nurse who wrote a book about the 5 regrets of those who are dying. And the first one was that I wish I had the courage to live the life that I wanted, not what someone else wanted, not what society told me, not what was expected of me, but live the life that I had the courage to live as I wished. I think, and there are 5 of them. They're all as poignant and compelling. But that first one made me sit back and go, am I living the life that I wish I want to have? And made me think about what it would be to be at my deathbed. And so this is one of the things that I have in one of my books, is an exercise where I ask people to write down what you want on your tombstone. And another exercise where I say, is this your funeral? What do you expect people to tell you? You're gone. You know, we are mortal. I know we all love to think that we live forever. And when we're at our age, we think, oh, we've got lots to go.
Yeah.
But we are mortal beings, and that's just inevitable. It will end. But what is it going to look like? And I think being aware of our mortality, and I don't mean that in a macabre way, but in a positive, and looking forward to creating a life that's filled with stuff that you want to do, that's filled with a legacy that doesn't just, you know, it's not just accumulating wealth but helping others, that you can look back at you at 84, 94, 104 and say, wow, I want to say, what a ride has it been. Yes. That's what I want to say. What a ride. My 80 years, 90 years, whatever. And if I can say that, and if everything I'm doing right now gets me there, I'm happy. And just that feeling gives me so much energy to do what I want to do.
Yes.
Even though entrepreneurship is difficult, it's a struggle. It's not easy, but my goodness, every day I jump out of bed going, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah.
If I answered your question.
Yes, you did. You did. And it's interesting too, Tikiri, because I had a friend around when I was 30 years old who right after she turned 30, she passed away and of cancer. And it was the same experience for me. I had a big wake up call of, do I really want to be doing this for much longer? And so from there, I've been able to transform what I do as well. And there's so much power that can be found in changing what you do. Because I think a lot of us start to identify with what we do. Yes. So we don't think we can make a change. But then once we make the decision, the commitment, we can do it. So thank you. That's perfect. Yeah.
That's so true. I if I may, I remember for years telling myself, I am manager XYZ who made this much money, who is at this level, who carried in at that time in my world, in Canada, we carried Blackberries, and that was a status symbol. I know Blackberries are going out of business, but this was about 7 years ago, and that was me. And to remove myself from that, who are you really? I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
It's an important question.
Okay. So on the same theme of fear, can you think of something where you didn't think you were going to be able to do something? Like you didn't think it was possible, and then you did actually achieve or accomplish what you didn't think was possible?
I'm going to give a example from my fiction world, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
So one of the things, I grew up, when you travel, when you move a lot as a child, it's hard to make friends. So books were my friends. Like I grew up with Enid Blyton and Isaac Asimov and even Charles Dickens and Shakespeare, whatever was left in the places we lived in, right? You go to these international schools and you take these dusty books off those musty shelves and you read them. They were my friends. So ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to be a writer or an author. And I never considered it to be an authorship. All I said was, I wish I could make other people feel like this when they turn the page. And there's a book that I always remember. It's called Faraway Land. I think it's by Enid Blyton, where there's a bunch of people, this is children's books, a bunch of people who live on treetops. And there's a whole world built over the clouds in these massive trees. And it's just magical, and it transports you into a world where in the imagination of the author. Why am I telling you all this? I've always wanted to do that, and I grew up thinking in the back of my head, I'd love to be an award-winning author. I just wanted to do that. And then I got into the corporate world where I put on a suit and pearls and put my hair up and was very serious and spent my days with spreadsheets, right? And telling people giving project plans and business cases. And when the day I decided to quit, that probably was you talk about fear. It wasn't as fearful as my 18-year-old self, 19-year-old self on the curb, but it was a scary place to be. I actually packed my bags. I left my home. I moved across the country, 3,000 kilometers to the West Coast. And they said, no, we still have some projects to do, so you can work. So I continued working. But after a couple of years, I said, this is not for me. I can continue to hold that as a crutch, but this is not for me. So I remember the call that came, Chelsea, from my very senior manager or a boss, a director general, and he said, your job is back in the East. Are you coming or not? And I said no.
Wow.
So the move was like a half thing, right? And working from West Coast was it's another crutch. I'm still hanging on to that. And that call, when I said no, and at the same time I was offered a job in a very large company on the West Coast. It's an international transportation company. And because I was thinking maybe I'll work here, and they called around the same week and they said, we'd love you to come for an interview. We think you're the perfect candidate. And the salary was way more than what I was making even in my present job, and it was in my new town. I turned that down.
Wow.
I didn't sleep for 2 months. And after both those calls, I got off, I left home and I walked around the block couple of times. What did I do? Like, because in my gut, I felt it was not. When my boss's boss said, "Your job is here. Are you coming?" And my stomach just screamed no. So my brain said, "Tikiri, you got a job there. It's an amazing job. People would die to be in that stable, pensionable, golden handcuff job." And the fact that I said no, it was letting my gut take over and make a decision that was life-changing versus using my brain for more operational things. So I realized that's when and how I need to use my instincts versus my brain. But that was a huge, it was, if you ask me about a fearful thing. And then I told myself, I'm going to stay for a year. I'm going to write novels because that's what I've always wanted. And I don't write fluff. Some people don't like the books I write because they're a little weighty, but I write about, because I traveled around the world, I just came to face how women were treated. And you and I live in a very different world from the majority of the world. And I'm talking about people who live in poverty. I believe there's about 1 billion people who live on $2.50 a day. There are 800 people who are illiterate around the world, and a majority of them are women. Their lives are so different from ours. Imagine not being able to read and speak and stand for yourself. So I thought, I have been given this privilege of being able to live in this safe environment. I can walk out on the streets without getting harassed. I can walk into a boardroom anywhere in Canada, North America. I've done that in Europe and didn't think anything other than I'm here to do my job. And yet, and I started off as an immigrant girl on the curb, and I thought it's my responsibility to tell their stories. I'm sorry, I'm telling you a lot of things to say. I wrote the stories, and the first book, it won one award from New York and got nominated for the Silver Falcon Award. So I'm sitting there going, that was worth everything. Yeah. If that's all I do, I really enjoyed that ride.
And since then, you've written a number of books.
Yes.
And remind me, how many books have you written now?
They say you become an author when you forget how many you've written.
Right.
I've written three novels.
Yes.
In the Red Heel Rebel series, and a short story to go with that. And I've written 3 nonfiction books, which I call, which are about the self-empowerment message that we're talking about today.
Yes.
And I also have a mini ebook called Bust Your Fears that goes with that self-empowerment books. And I've written a couple more novels, but they'll never see the light of the day. they're in my, it's like any pilot, right? You don't want anyone to see them.
Yes, I think that's part of being a writer, right? Yeah, that's awesome. And just the fact that you knew in your body told you right away, say no. And then you went for it. And look at you now. You've done amazing things. So that's good. That's good. So for people who are in a similar situation where they have this dream that they want to follow, what would you say 3 reasons are for wanting to, or to tell them to do that right away? What would you say?
I think going back to what I said earlier.
Yeah.
Think of yourself at your deathbed. It's inevitable. You have to stop pretending it doesn't happen. It's going to happen. Think of yourself at 85, 95. What do you want to say? Who do you want to be surrounded by? And what do you want to be proud of yourself when you leave, when you take your last breath on this earth? If you can think of that, take 5 minutes, close your eyes. I think that'll shift your world in unimaginable ways. And then you can make those difficult decisions that your logical brain is saying, no, hang on to that job. Yes, I hate it. Yes, I shrink. I'm working at 10th of my potential, but hang on. All of that goes away. The pettiness goes away and your life just blows up. And I think we are capable of so much. Every one of us, 8 billion of us, right? Imagine if we were all at our maximum, and we play so small. Anyway, so that's one thing. And another thing is related to that, because I always tell myself time passes anyway, right? I mean, if you think about it, you're 40, then you're 50, then you're 60. Time will pass anyway. What are you doing with it? And most of us, we feel like we think so short term. We think, oh, tomorrow I'm going to watch this Netflix show, and then I go out for drinks with my friends. But time will pass. What do you want to achieve, and what legacy do you want to leave behind? And the third thing that I would say is, and this really shook me, and this is what made me go, no way I'm going to work for anyone again. I'm going to be on my own. And that was, I read a quote somewhere, and I wish I could remember who it was, but they said, you either are going to work really hard for yourself to build your dream, or you're going to be working really hard to build someone else's dream. How many of us are working super hard? Every one of us, we work probably more than what we expect from ourselves. We give our sweat, blood, and tears into something to build another person's, another organization's, firms, companies' dreams, when perhaps we could do more with so much pleasure and fulfillment for ourselves, right? And that's what made me go, I'm not going to be building another person's dream. Good for you. Good for them. But I have a dream too, and I'm going to go for it. And you know what? Even if I fail and fall flat on my face, like Gary Vaynerchuk says, you die on your own sword is so much more fulfilling than dying on someone else's sword. And I live by that mantra.
Yes.
So those are 2, 3, maybe 4.
That's good. That's good. And it's inspiring, right? Hearing it from somebody that's done it, it helps people, I think, know that it's possible, which is great. And I know that there's people that are watching today who maybe don't want to start their own thing, but it still translates, because the way that the working world and corporations are changing is people need to be accountable for their own careers. And so even if you are working within a corporation, you still have to have a vision for yourself and what you want to accomplish. So either way, you gotta tie into something.
That is so true. That's the change we're seeing, isn't it? Even in the government, I work for the federal government. I've worked with the US, the UK governments. I've worked at NATO. There is a lot of that intrapreneurial that's being rewarded. It wasn't rewarded when I was starting out. I was told, stop doing that. Stop asking questions, right? But it changed. It changed over the years. And when I was leaving, it was closer to that You're very right. And I think that means we need to be accountable, and we can work for someone else and live our dream.
Yes.
If we are aware and we know where we're going,
Yes.
what we, and be more self-aware. I think that's important.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So, when people are shifting careers, what are 3 pitfalls that they can avoid based on your experience?
2 that are both sides of coin. The first one is only chasing money.
Yes.
For the sake of chasing money. And I think that is a mistake. That's a given. And on the other side of that coin is only chasing your passions. So when I was writing my books, my novels, it took me a while to understand that perhaps what I'm writing might not have, it's not certainly not Harry Potter, right?
Right. Okay.
It's not Stephen King's books. It's a different genre. And I went through that first year through my journey, which is where I'm right now, where now I've learned that I need to satisfy what I want to do, what value that I can give people, what I'm good at doing. That's
Right.
important. And then a fourth tangent to that is, what kind of environment do I want to work in? So I have those, I have a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. I'm a structured, probably to the anal point, excuse my language. Sorry about that. But I have this Venn diagram in one of my books where I say, if you can find your sweet spot where what you love to do, what you're good at doing, and it doesn't mean you're good just what you're good at today, but what you're capable of learning. And I'm a big believer that we can learn whatever we want. At the same time, I can't be a basketball player or a firefighter. I'm a tiny, small woman. But there are other things that I can grow and learn in. So what you love to do, what you can learn and what you can gain skills on, and the environment you want to work in, and most importantly, what value you can give to the world. So the one question which I didn't ask when I was writing my novels was, I fit everything else, but then I asked myself, what value am I giving to the world that they would be willing to pay me for my books? I have a very ardent fan base for the books I write, but it's not a huge enough and large enough that's like a Harry Potter kind of thing. So I think it's important that we don't just chase money, because that's hollow, and you'll find out very soon that you're not satisfied. I mean, that's a sad life. You should also not follow passion. I think it's a more holistic picture that you need to build. And the third one would be, as entrepreneurs or even as employees, but more for entrepreneurs, you've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? I used to do risk management. That's why people hired me. The big bucks was, Tikiri, come here and incorporate and implement risk management for our federal department. Was what I was paid for. And I think, and in such stoic, not stoic, there's another word for it, they're very stable environments. It's very hard to shake people up and say, you need to take more risks if you want to grow and meet, give this service to these constituents, what have you. But it's that ability to be uncomfortable, to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I say you got to embrace ambiguity. Go close enough that you can give it a kiss. Like, you have to I used to talk a lot in my risk management world about the uncertainty of life, right? And I'd always, go in front of executives and tell them that the world is uncertain. Nothing is guaranteed. You can be the biggest federal government agency, you have all the armies behind you, you have everything behind you, but the world is uncertain. We don't know what will happen next 5 minutes, 5 years, 10 years from now. But the smart thing we can do is not risk management in the traditional sense of, let's just cover ourselves from every angle that we're so safe. And in my mind, that's akin to going and sleeping under your bed for the rest of your life. And that what a life would that be, right? But I think we need to come up with bodacious goals, whether you're an individual, whether you're a firm, a company, the small mom and pop, or whether you're a large international organization. And if you are, like the United Nations has its huge humanitarian goals that they want to achieve, I like those. They're not, we haven't achieved them and they are falling behind. There's a lot of work to be done, but that's the kind of thinking we need to do. But that's a whole other story. It's a whole other podcast on how the UN works and it doesn't work. And I think about it. But it's having those bodacious goals and then saying, okay, now we don't know whether we can achieve them. We don't know how what the obstacles are, but we're going to have faith, and then we're going to start looking at the obstacles and managing them as we go. So being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Does that help? It's a long answer to a short question.
That I can tell, Tikiri, that you are passionate about this topic. And so you've got the entire Rebel Diva series coming out. So tell us a little bit about this, because I know you're offering us a free gift, and that's very generous of you. So tell us what that is, and then what we can expect to see from you very soon.
I'd be happy to. And I'm so excited to share these with you because I want to spread my message. So I'm giving away a small mini booklet called the Bust Your Fears. And that's really, it's a layperson's, a very short snapshot of the decades of risk management I did, but put into a very short book with, I mean, I think I can beef that up some more, but that's a very, it's like a taster.
Yes.
Tell you, here are some of the ways in how you can overcome fear in your life, and some mindset shifts and some tools you can use. And you can also download the audio component for that book, and it's all free, and I hope you enjoy them and use them. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to share them with you. As you can see, I love to talk. I love to talk about these topics. So yeah, you'll be right up my alley if you call me on those. So that's the freebie. And then what's coming up very soon is what I call the Rebel Diva series. And the reason I call them Rebel Diva is to be a rebel. Stop being complacent, right?
Yes.
It doesn't mean carrying a Kalashnikov gun and doing something in the desert. It means just being a rebel in your life, in our modern day life. But and diva in the old Latin form, it means goddess. So I think my message applies to men and women, but I've targeted my books to women because I was writing for the 19-year-old me. So that's how I wrote them. But those books, there are 3 of them coming up. My Your Rebel Dreams, which talk about finding your passions and purpose, and the 4 Venn diagram I talked about earlier. How do you come up with that sweet spot is the first book, Your Rebel Dreams. Your Rebel Plan is my project management hat came on because I was a girl who everybody said, oh, nobody wants this project. There's $300 million or $80 million coming in. It's a hot potato. Take care of it. So I was thinking, so I did project management. That's I have credentials in it. So I thought, fine, if you want to take over the world, in the first book, you figure out what you want to do. In the second book, I say, here is a step-by-step process of setting goals, coming up with plans to get to where you want to go. So I think it's really important that we don't just sit back and say, oh, I want to be a writer one day, but okay, how are you going to do it? And really put it down. And then the final book is called Your Rebel Life. And the reason I wrote that was, talking earlier about people who work so hard in their lives and they forget all the other facets and they get sick. So my third book is about you climb a mountain, and we all want to climb whatever mountain, and it's all different for each of us, but we still have to make sure that we have our health, our relationships. We are complex beings. We are a tribe. We're a communal species. We don't thrive on our own. We have to eat well. We have to move well. We have to sleep well. And I have all the do wells, work well. We have to learn well. We have to stimulate our brain because that keeps us healthy for the long term. We have to play well, and all of those other facets. I go through them to show how you can get to the mountain, but don't forget all these other areas. And
Yeah.
that means you're not going to work 80 hours a day and kill yourself.
Right.
But during those 80 hours, you work out, you eat well, you
Mhm.
spend time with your loved ones. So,
So important.
yeah.
Awesome. Oh, and so how do we find the books? I'll be providing the free gift link, but how do we find your books?
I think because they're not published yet, they're just, the first book is going to be published in 2 weeks and then one every month.
Yeah.
So the best place to go is probably my website. Go to www.rebeldivas with
Yeah.
an S,
Yeah.
rebeldivas.com.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm so happy, Tikiri, that I got to chat with you and interview you and share your story with this audience. I know that, I mean, you are just a light of possibility. and you've really gone after what you want. So thank you so much for being part of the show.
Oh, thank you, Chelsea. It was a pleasure to be here. And you're my inspiration as well. You're doing some amazing things. So thank you for doing what you're doing and for inviting me. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.